The land had never forgiven the men who tried to own it. It lay stretched beneath the sky like an old scar, dry, wind-bitten, stubborn. Mesquite trees hunched low against the plains, their shadows crawling like dark fingers over cracked earth. Dust moved constantly here, even when the air was still, drifting along fence lines and settling into the creases of a man's clothes. His skin, his soul. Jonah Cole stood on his porch and watched it all. The ranch had been in his family for 3 generations. Though the word family felt thin now, the house behind him was too quiet, the kind of quiet that rang in the ears. A single rocking chair creaked in the breeze, empty. His coffee had gone cold in his hand. Below the porch steps, his horse shifted and snorted, iron shoes scraping stone. Jonah rested a palm on the post beside him, fingers tracing grooves worn there by his father's hands long before his own. Had learned the weight of responsibility. He had not slept. By dawn, everything would change. The Apache family arrived just after noon, riding in slow, careful formation, as if the land itself might object to them crossing it. Jonah saw them first as dark shapes against the heat haze, 3 riders, then 4, then more emerging behind them. They did not ride like outlaws or soldiers. Their pace was measured, watchful, proud without being loud. When they reached the fence line, they stopped. A woman dismounted first. She was tall, her hair bound in a long braid streaked with silver despite her youth. Her eyes met Jonah's from across the yard, sharp and unreadable, like a blade held steady in the hand. Behind her came an older man, weathered as the plains themselves, his face a map of years and losses. 2 children followed, no fear in them, only curiosity. Jonah descended the porch steps slowly, boots crunching gravel. He raised a hand, not in greeting, not in warning, just acknowledgement. "You made it," he said. The woman nodded. "We did not believe the message at first." He didn't blame them. The paper in his coat pocket felt heavier than lead. A deed, signed, witnessed, legal by every law the territory still pretended to respect. "This land," the old man said, glancing across the ranch. "The grazing fields, the distant waterline. It has blood in it." Jonah swallowed. Most land does. Silence stretched. Wind sighed through dry grass. Somewhere a crow cried. Finally the woman stepped forward. Why? It was the question everyone would ask. Jonah looked past them, toward the far hills, where the sun baked the earth raw. He thought of the letter he'd received months earlier, the seal official and unforgiving. Thought of the men in black coats who'd come sniffing around, talking about rail lines and expansion. Thought of his wife's grave on the ridge, and the promise he'd made there. "Because it was taken," he said quietly, "and because I'm tired of pretending I don't know that." The woman studied him for a long moment. Something shifted in her expression, not trust, not yet, but interest. Recognition, perhaps, as if she'd seen this kind of man before and survived him. "We will accept," she said. "But know this, rancher, land given is not land forgiven." Jonah nodded. "I wouldn't ask it to be." Word spread faster than fire in dry brush. By sundown, riders were already passing the ranch at a distance, eyes sharp beneath their hats. Men spat into the dirt when they heard. Others laughed, low and ugly. Jonah heard the first threat before nightfall. It came from Silas Boone, owner of the neighboring spread, and a man whose smile never reached his eyes. "You've lost your damn mind," Silas said, leaning against the hitching rail at the saloon, whiskey heavy on his breath. "Giving land to Apaches? You just signed your own death warrant." Jonah didn't look up from his drink. "I signed a deed." Silas chuckled. "Same thing out here." "You always did think fear was law," Jonah replied. Silas's smile vanished. "Fear is law, and by dawn you'll see whose side this town's on." Jonah met his gaze then, steady as bedrock. "I already know." Night fell hard. Stars burned cold above the plains. Coyotes called from the dark, their voices weaving through the ranch like restless spirits. Jonah lay awake on his bed, revolver on the nightstand, listening. Hooves. Not one horse, many. Slow, controlled. He rose and moved to the window. They came without torches, without noise, materializing from the darkness. Like the land itself had decided to stand up and walk riders, dozens, then hundreds. Apache warriors, elders, families, an entire people moving as one. They surrounded the ranch, not threatening, not hostile, protective. At their center rode the woman from earlier, her posture calm, her gaze fixed on the house. Jonah stepped onto the porch, heart pounding, breath fogging in the cold pre-dawn air. She lifted her hand. They stopped. "This land is now watched," she called softly. Not in anger, in memory. Jonah felt something loosen in his chest, something he hadn't known was knotted there. From the hills beyond, another sound rose. Gunfire. Men shouting. Silas Boone and his riders coming fast. The woman turned her head slightly, eyes narrowing. "Dawn," she said. "It seems we arrived together." Jonah tightened his grip on the railing. The first shot echoed across the plains. The first bullet split the dawn like a scream. It struck the hitching rail at the edge of the ranch yard, exploding wood into splinters. Horses reared. Dust leapt from the ground. The fragile quiet of the plains shattered, replaced by chaos carried on gun smoke and fear. Jonah Cole did not flinch. He had known this moment was coming the instant he signed the deed. The land always demanded witnesses when old wrongs were challenged. From the ridge to the east, Silas Boone's men came hard and fast, nearly 30 riders, silhouettes cut sharp against the paling sky. They rode like men who believed the world owed them obedience, rifles raised, mouths open in shouts that carried more hate than courage. "Apache lovers!" someone yelled. "Burn it all!" Jonah stepped forward onto the porch rail, revolver drawn, but before he could fire, movement rippled through the darkness around him. The Apache warriors did not charge. They flowed. Riders peeled off in silence, circling wide, cutting angles Jonah hadn't even considered. Hooves were wrapped in cloth. Rifles appeared where empty hands had been moments before. The children and elders withdrew toward the cottonwoods near the creek, shielded without panic. The woman, Naya, rode to Jonah's side, her horse calm amid the gunfire. "Do not waste your breath trying to stop this," she said. "They came to take. Now they will learn the cost." Another shot rang out. A Boone rider pitched backward from his saddle, disappearing into the dust. The fight was on. The plains became a battlefield, carved by instinct and memory. Silas Boone's men fired wildly, their bullets tearing into fence posts and earth, confidence bleeding away with every unanswered shout. They had expected fear. Scattered resistance, not this. Apache rifles cracked with discipline, shots measured, devastating. Horses screamed, men fell. Dust rose so thick it turned the sunrise red. Jonah fired twice, dropping a rider who'd broken through toward the barn. He moved on reflex now, body remembering lessons taught by his father long ago. Aim low, breathe steady, never waste a bullet. Between shots he saw Naya again. She rode like she belonged to the wind, braids snapping behind her, eyes fierce and focused. She fired once, twice, each shot finding its mark. There was no cruelty in her movements, only resolve. Something twisted inside Jonah's chest. This land had never been empty. It had only been waiting. Silas Boone did not flee. He pushed forward, rage burning hotter than fear, revolver blazing as he rode straight toward the house. "Cole!" he screamed. "You traitor son of a bitch!" Jonah stepped down into the yard, leveling his gun. "This ends now, Silas." Silas laughed, wild and broken. "You think they'll save you? When the army comes, they'll hang you beside them." Before Jonah could answer, Naya's horse slid to a stop between them. "You speak of armies," she said, voice calm as still water. "We have survived them all." Silas fired. The shot went wide. Jonah's bullet did not. Silas Boone collapsed into the dust, blood darkening the earth he'd tried to own. The remaining riders broke. They turned and ran, fear finally claiming them, leaving bodies, weapons, and broken pride scattered across the plains. The silence that followed was heavier than the gunfire. Smoke drifted upward as the sun finally cleared the horizon. The Apache warriors dismounted, checking their wounded, offering water even to fallen enemies who still breathed. There was no celebration, no triumph, only the steady work of survival. Jonah stood amid the wreckage, hands shaking now that the moment had passed. Naya approached him slowly. "This was only the first answer," she said. "Others will come." "I know," Jonah replied. "The railroad men, the soldiers." She studied him closely. "You could still leave." He looked at the ranch house, the graves on the ridge, The land that felt for the first time honest beneath his boots. "No," he said. "I've already stayed longer than most men would." Something softened in her eyes, just for a moment. "Then you will not stand alone." That night, fires burned low across the ranch. Stories were spoken in quiet voices. Wounds were bound. Jonah shared coffee with people his neighbors had only ever named as enemies. The land listened. Above them, stars watched as they always had. Before turning in, Jonah stood beside Naya near the creek, moonlight silvering the water. "You didn't have to come," he said. She met his gaze. "Neither did you." Their eyes lingered a second too long. Somewhere in the distance, a train whistle echoed far away. But coming closer every day, the land shuddered as if it knew